Hi, thanks for joining today. My name's Kyle Boston. I'm a partner with Spalding Ridge. We're joined by Peter Lesterhouse, Chief Financial Officer of Kruger Family Industries. Peter, it's great to have you here to tell us a little bit more about your journey around your digital transformation, leveraging MuleSoft as well as replacing your legacy ERP. Would you mind just sharing a little bit more about your background and also about the organization, Kruger Family Industries?
Yes, certainly. So I've been in the financial services industry as an investment banker, consultant, and CFO for the last 25, 30 years. Spent a lot of time in the manufacturing space. I currently, or I'm with Kruger Family Industries. It's a family holding company, conglomerate focused on returnable packaging, OEM components, and automotive accessories. And so the four end markets that I kind of think of is the automotive industry, where we make wheel well liners, so inside of a wheel well on the pickup truck or vehicle. We're the largest manufacturer of pickup bed protections, so drop-in truck bed liners, automotive pallets, battery packs, think of large suitcase type boxes for electric vehicles, nestable and stackable, and a lot of custom packaging in the automotive space for various automotive components like drivetrains and what have you. And then secondly, in the retail industry, where we make pallets and sleeve packs to minimize storage and reduce shipping costs. In the food and grocery aisle, where we make pallets for boxes, for various food manufacturers, delivery carts, whether small format, large format delivery carts. And then finally in the leisure space, where we make kayaks, winter sleds, portable restrooms or porta potties, and various other large plastic items. Today, we are the largest heavy gauge thermoformer, so we make thick plastic pieces. Typically packaging is the last thing people think about. And so our unique differentiation is that we can go from engineering to design to thermoforming and extruding to finishing and assembly of any large plastic pieces, which is really the core of our focus.
Thanks so much for that background in highlighting some of the key areas where your organization sits. I think it's safe to say that there's a strong organizational focus around B2B kind of customers or vendors. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Great. And from your standpoint, I know kind of we're here today to talk about, really your broader digital transformational journey, leveraging and implementing MuleSoft. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about that initiative? Also, I think it would be helpful to share context around the systems that you were on prior from an IT standpoint, and maybe even some of the pain points that you were experiencing prior that led you to choose, MuleSoft as your software of choice, as well as, the direction to actually move forward with this part of your digital transformation.
Absolutely. So, our digital transformation really started with finding or looking for implementing one source of truth. We had multiple companies on multiple ERP systems. And so we really went from 3 ERP systems to one. This was the fundamental first step kind of along this journey. And it was the biggest hurdle to cross. And so we ended up going with the NetSuite, Oracle on the cloud, which I'll cover in a minute. We had really a deep focus on having a common language, having one database of data. So over the past 3 years, we've really had a deep focus on automation and really cross-functional automation from the perspective of that we wanted manufacturing, AR, sales, marketing, engineering, and supply chain all to be on the same platform, so to say. It wasn't just, finance's shiny new toy. Typically, when in the past, when I've seen companies undertake this, it's taken multiple years, multiple pieces of software, and the issue always really became They're really not communicating together. There were version control issues. So at KFI, we carefully laid out this strategy to avoid this. And so, ultimately, we're really focused on how do we drive better decisions, and how do we access this data that's created, on a real-time basis, and how do we protect that data? And so part of our corporate strategy is really to roll up the extruders and thermoformers in this industry. So it was important to kind of send this, fundamental platform, really thinking about, anytime, anywhere accessibility to data, whether that be on the plant on the plant floor, or anywhere in the world for that matter. Based on that, we really focused on a cloud-based solution. We looked at on-prem, but really feel that the cloud is really, the ways of the future. And so when you think about the different aspects, you asked about the different aspects of our digital transformation. So if I think about the manufacturing tentacle, I think about shipping software where we use Cubics, product scanning where we use our Smart. We have a fully configurable supply chain, and so we've got multiple plants, we've got multiple products, multiple end markets, and so we use Blue Ridge, and all our materials are license plated in the various warehouses. So we always know whether you're sitting on a forklift, whether you're walking around, whether you have your iPad or whatever device you may have, you can find it, and where you're at, and what you're kind of working towards. So from a human resources, we have Ceridian and Dayforce that we implemented from the supply chain. We've got ContractWorks. From sales and marketing, we have Salesforce, ZoomInfo, MailChimp, Qualtrics, and I'm sure I'm missing a number of them. But it really comes down to how do you take all this data in, and what do you do with it? And so from my past experiences, very often different groups are compartmentalized, and it's really difficult to kind of get it one system, up and running. And so we quickly come to find out, or we quickly realize that there needs to be a common language between these different software pieces, and it needs to be some software in the middle, which we really look at as MuleSoft, which is really takes all this, it takes us in, and it's easily able to be configured so that the various softwares can talk to each other, and all the data can get in the database. So when I joined, our state of operations was, again, multiple companies, multiple ERP systems. We were consolidating financials within Excel. As great as Excel is, there's probably better uses for it. We had different sales groups at different of our companies contacting the same clients, multiple HR systems that weren't really talking to each other. So from a cash management perspective, it was really difficult to kind of look at, what the requirements are, multiple marketing departments. And so, what I've really seen now is, how can you all kind of tie it together? And so certainly over the past 20 years, during my multiple tours of duties at various companies, I've seen a lot of companies kind of purchase these things one by one and then try to implement it. And by the time they're done implementing it, there is already a version change on something else they're implementing it to. And so all of a sudden, you end up kind of running against that wall. And frankly, some companies never really finish this implementation. It becomes the everlasting implementation, which is great for firms like Spalding Ridge. But if you think about it from a client's perspective, it's really challenging. And I just look at the sheer brain power that's put into this, integration issues and addressing those issues. And not that I'm looking at the bottom line, but you can spend a ridiculous amount of money and effort to really focus on that. So my key issue, or my key focus, was always, how do we create a scalable solution? How do we implement the right software, the right focus, all on one platform? And how does it all come back to the ERP? Because there needs to be a data warehouse somewhere to keep all that information in play.
Yeah, no, I think that was extremely helpful for those listening in as well to this. I think there's commonalities that they can find within their organization, both, what is the current state of their operations, their personnel, their processes, right? Um, if you could kind of bullet point a few maybe types of efficiencies that you've gained, I think that would be helpful for others, from this new state of operations, as well as after rolling this out. What are kind of, if you had to boil it down to two or three, what are the efficiencies you've gained? And maybe also share a little bit of how this has changed how you impact or react to you know your customers. I think that's going to be really important.
Yeah. So I would say that the nearest and dearest to my heart is probably the order flow. Previously, we had a homegrown system within the EDI, so within electronic data interchange, and this homegrown system wasn't really an option to get into NetSuite. It was just too much of an effort. All these orders are machine generated. They cannot be efficiently run or read by a human, and there's really no standardization between our end clients. So we really needed that solid, scalable platform. And just on, kind of order of magnitude, monthly we take in between 3,000 to 5,000 sales orders, which could be for hundreds of parts. We receive various different forms in the EDI language. It's like 830s, 850s, 862s. Both are from a plant perspective, so they go directly into the OEMs and as well into the dealer network. After we take those 5,000 sales orders in, again, they could be for hundreds of parts. We sent nearly 2,000 confirmations monthly, so that would be an 856. And then we send over 1,000 invoices every month. And all this is done without a human touching it, right? And so based on this volume, one day down, you could potentially never recover from, because there's not enough people within our organization. We would have to stop manufacturing and just focus on keying this in. And so often, if you don't have a system that automatically reads this into the ERP system, you would have to go to some, portal for Ford, for example, and take the data out and then try to translate it and put it back into NetSuite. And frankly, part of the issue is that there's multiple formats coming at you, so it's not easy to leverage off one and duplicate it to the next. By that I mean is the way GM does it or the way Ford does it is not the same, and it's going to be really challenging to persuade Ford, hey, the way GM does it is better, right? And so some of these issues are really, really challenging. And so once you have the existing partnership set up, and they change some sort of requirement. So as you can imagine, some of the OEMs have had the system in place. It's very difficult for them to change. It's very time consuming. So they're slowly upgrading their systems, which means now they're sending you a different type of information, which you have to adjust to if you want to do business with them. And so it's having a solid system like MuleSoft in place really allows the faster partner onboarding because of its simplicity. The other thing is allows you to differentiate yourself and become a trusted partner because they're looking for that ease of access. And it allows one to really evolve their business to not only in the OEM space, but most end clients, any large companies is going towards this solution because of the efficiencies that it brings. So once to ingest all this information into the ERP system, you really need something like Mule that's going to take that handshake and then, what do you do with it? So, and to answer the second part of your question is, our new value proposition is really, we are able to go back to our end clients and say, look, we have this system. You're using it. It allows you more efficient use to work with us. And there's really no manual process involved. Once it's set up, it's really automatic. And so when you think about some of these larger companies, whether it's a white good manufacturer, whether it's an OEM, a lot of times they have 30 days worth of rolling sales orders. And so you're able to see 30 days out, the upcoming month as far as what the volume is coming in. And so you can really integrate into NetSuite, and you can kind of plan for your manufacturing that way. And at the end of the day, this really allows sales folks to focus on sales versus interpreting the data and looking at it every day, entering the data in, maybe fat fingering it, so it's really challenging. And certainly from a finance perspective, if I think about the invoices going out, that in itself is a huge advantage, where you're able to take your folks in finance and really allow them more to analyze the data versus really the data entry. So I would say the impact on KFI has been tremendous.
There's a lot to unpack there. I don't want to just kind of narrow it into one word, but while I was hearing you speak, all I kept thinking about was the word automation, and what that does for organizations. Unfortunately, in or coming out of this pandemic, businesses shifting the way in which customers are interacting with businesses, the way in which your employees are interacting with their systems. The automation that I think exists here because of this solution, was great for your organization. But I'm curious from also your experience and what you now know on the other side of this implementation, what other industries or kind of micro industries would benefit from something like this? Is there any that stand out to you?
I would say, certainly if you look at the end market, any type of manufacturing end market, if you look at any type of retail markets, anywhere where you have, either large volume or a large volume of transactions, and it doesn't really matter how many transactions are in there. But if you want to automate this, this process of taking your orders in, ingesting it into the system and getting that quality control completed, there's a lot of things within the system, within MuleSoft, you can say it needs to fall in these variables. As I always say to my people, our staff, within the organization, if you can think of the logic on how this would work, any if-then statement or what have you, any logic like that, and you want to ingest the sales orders that way, you can do that within MuleSoft. So you're really limited by your imagination, as you would be limited by your imagination within, what industries you could use this. Other things that you can think about is forecasting. As you take information out of your ERP system, MuleSoft is something that is a bi-directional integration. And so, if you think about various software pieces like, if you think about Salesforce, right? So the information is going into Salesforce. There could be things like pricing data within Salesforce or within NetSuite that could go bi-directional. And so, as easy as everybody says, all the software, providers say, hey, it's easy to do this, right? But then sometimes what they fail to tell you is there's some limitations on what they can do because there's software like MuleSoft in place, really for that purpose. And so again, you're kind of, as far as industry, as far as, types of transactions, it's really limited by your imagination.
Yeah. No, thanks so much for sharing that. I think, others will really benefit from, it's not just a technical solution, it's also a business improvement. And so it stretches a wide range of industries, a wide range of use cases. Something that we take really seriously here at Spalding Ridge is the fact that we can, help solve these business solution problems, leveraging multiple technologies. Obviously, Salesforce, MuleSoft, integration with a larger enterprise ERPs. I'd kick myself if I didn't let you go here today without asking you, how was your experience with us in Spalding Ridge? Maybe you can also share for others that are looking at this down the line of, what does a partner look like for you to be successful in rolling this out like you have on the other side?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think it's challenging to build up a core group of people that have this type of experience. And so having spent some time in the professional services industry that, various big four accounting firms and what have you, it's challenging. It's challenging to build this up. And so you really need a trusted partner, to undertake something like this. And the other piece is you have to have somebody that has the bandwidth, and you're in the trenches with, right? Because as much as we think this is all, we stood up our ERP in 8 months, which I've done this a couple of times. 8 months is a record time, to get an ERP stood up, especially when it's as complicated as we made it sound. And so having a project manager in place to help you with that, and having the right level of senior support is important. But at the end of the day, somebody has to implement it. And so this is not something you can just hand off if you don't have the support internally. You have to get it stood up. You have to get people trained. You have to get certified on the new platform. You have to have, you have to build up the capacity or capability internally. And so, this without Spalding Ridge, we clearly could not have done it. At the end of the day, you have to document what the changes are, what the sales orders, how everything kind of comes into play and how everything works, so that you have a playbook when you do get stood up and a new person joins, that they're able to look at that playbook. And even though they haven't been part of the last 8 months or, getting it stood up, it's really important to have that. What I often say is developers are not project managers, right? Developers are really good. Oh, what do you want us to fix? Right? We can fix that. And so you can quickly get a lot of developers kind of run every which way. It's like when you watch a 5-year-old's, 7-year-old soccer game, it's like they're just running where the ball goes. But you need somebody to manage that. And it's really challenging to have somebody internally do away with their day job and just focus on this. And so that's why it helps. And Spalding Ridge did have a project manager come in and help us with that. We went through a lot of trials and tribulations on where we were hoping it would work, but we didn't have an option with the EDI, for example, for it not to work. Yep. And so there was a lot of, there's a fair amount of stress that when you do get it stood up, a lot of people are quick to say, hey, you've been up and running for a month. Good luck. We'll see you on the next one. And so really that partnership and that trust and that communication is really important.
Couldn't agree more. I think it's something we approach is all business is personal. It's something that comes down from our CEO, Jay Labs, and make sure that it's a staple in every project and every experience that our clients have. I'm glad that you had the same. Anytime that an initiative is this important and can bring this much ROI, there is aspects of this where you just truly have to have a partnership. So thank you today for sharing, really your experience around, upgrading your legacy on-premise ERP, your B2B EDI connection through MuleSoft, your experience with Spalding Ridge as your strategic partner here in this digital transformation. Thank you. I know everyone else also listening will be very encouraged by what they have heard here today as well. And again, just thanks for taking the time, the partnership, and appreciate everything.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kyle. Take care.
Thank you.